I grew up here in Atlanta, in Southwest Atlanta, and so it's a predominantly African American neighborhood. And you know, it was just, see, I done messed up already. See, yeah, it's a predominantly African American neighborhood full of the types of things that we need in our community. I mean, you have your local barbershops, you have a church on almost every street corner, you know, you have your fast food places that we enjoy, such as American Deli and the Hong Kong Chinese buffet. So yeah, that's kind of the gist of the neighborhood I grew up in.
Well, the neighborhood that I grew in, or at least the neighborhood that I grew in, or the ones that I bounced around in Mobile, Alabama, were predominantly black. My mother tried her hardest to keep it, at the very least, middle class. So, you know, these are people that have at least one car in the driveway, cable, satellite, you know, well-to-do. No one's struggling, but nobody's rich at the same time either. You know, these were mostly families, because, you know, my mother wanted us to have, you know, some kids of our age to play with me, my younger brother and my mother's younger sister, Alex and Alexis. She definitely wanted us to be close to the best schools that were around in the area, and sometimes we fell a little short of that, but these weren't terrible schools by any shape of the imagination. But mind you, we're still talking about Mobile County Public School System here, so we're not talking about no top-rate school system either.
The school that I went to was in the neighborhood that I grew up in, so it was a predominantly black high school, African American. I think it was a good school. You know, I had teachers that, you know, were in Congress. I had some teachers that were Black Panthers at some point in time, and so I think it was a high school that gave me a lot of rich and valuable experiences.
The best school that I went to during my grade school years was E.R. Dixon Elementary, and it was a predominantly white elementary school, unfortunately. And I only say unfortunately because I would love for the schools in the black communities to be the excelling schools, but you know, such is wishful thinking. Not to say that we're not working on it, but at this point in time, facts are facts. My middle school was a Scarborough Middle School, predominantly black, and I think the issues with the predominantly black high schools is that they focus more on the disciplinary side of the academia instead of the actual learning and lesson plan side of the schooling. These schools that I went to, both Scarborough Middle School and LaFleur High School, seem to care more about their zero tolerance policies when it comes to fighting, or their zero tolerance policy when it comes to attendance and uniform violations, instead of getting the best teachers in there. And not to say that we didn't have some good teachers. I love the teachers that I went to my high school with. I still remember them fondly to this day and the lessons that they taught me, but suffice it to say, it was few and far in between. I can say at least within every school year, I had at the most 2 teachers that I felt like really made sure that their students got it, made sure that their students got the attention they need, the classrooms were well managed and well under control. And then you have these other teachers who, fortunately for myself, I only heard about, I never had to experience, that would just not necessarily care, run through the lesson plan, gave no regard to students who were struggling or students that just didn't quite get it. Most of these students were just passed along, and if they didn't get the little instruction that they were getting, they were just given up on. And those were usually the kids that were causing the most trouble. These are families whose parents probably have to hold 2 jobs down, long hours, just to make sure that there's food on the table. Not to say that the bulk of the responsibility should go on the teacher. It's definitely a 50-50 street, but I mean, don't necessarily give up on a student just because their parents are working. You got parents that are working 3 jobs, still come up to the school to ask what's going on with their child, what's going on with the teachers, what's going on with the principals, at PTA meetings religiously, and they're still not getting the help that they need. They still get called in for uniform violations. Why your son wasn't wearing a belt? So he forgot a belt today. You're going to send him home or put him in solitary confinement or in the principal's office because of that? A belt? Come on. And that's what I really hated about my school system. Like, they always cared more about discipline and uniform policy.
Well, it's kind of a mixed bag. See, I've attended a couple of high schools in my lifetime, but this one that I'm speaking of, the one I graduated from, it had a lot of things that a lot of high schools don't have, such as engineering high school courses, programming high school courses. I learned web design, HTML in high school. We had a robotics club. I took part of the first robotics club. First is an acronym, by the way. It wasn't the first robotics club, but it was, as far as things that it didn't have, I remember before they put me into the honors program, I remember being in a lot of courses where we actually didn't have textbooks, and I always thought it was interesting how they expected us to learn or do homework without textbooks. So the teachers, they adapted to that type of situation.
Why didn't you have textbooks?
Well, supposedly we just didn't have the funding for said textbooks. And I think another thing that was crazy was that one of the engineering electives that I took my senior year, we actually did not have a professor. So instead, for the whole semester, we had a substitute teacher who didn't teach us anything. Instead, she just let us watch movies that were completely unrelated to the subject of the course, and it was a good class. We had fun in that class.
Well, resources were pretty, standard issue, the little IBM desktop computers in the computer lab, and in any classroom that required a computer, the computer business classes had all of those, and the classrooms at least had 3 to each classroom, if that. And that was pretty much it. I mean, our library, to be honest, I never used my middle school or high school's library. I always went to like the Mobile County libraries, and their computers were not as advanced. I mean, they were still, if I remember correctly, the little IBM. The computer, the resources were pretty standard issue, run of the grade. Anything that anybody else, you will find this in pretty much any other standard issue school.
Could you give some specific examples?
I think it goes to prove my point, the fact that I can't give you too many. I mean, to get outside of that, even with because my high school was supposed to be a big to-do high school. Music and communications and the arts were pretty much a big deal in our school. Yet our band room was pretty okay. About the let me think. It was a relatively nice-sized band room. The band director had his office. The sections had their own room, and we had an instrument room, but we didn't have any school-issue instruments. Everybody had to bring their own instruments, and when those got busted, it was up to the students and their parents and their families to do something about it. It wasn't really much as far as like the school providing anything. At the end of the day, it wasn't terrible. It wasn't like there would be a long period of time where the printers wouldn't have ink, or we didn't have any paper, or everything was breaking down and wasn't fixed within a very timely fashion, or at least replaced. It was just, pretty basic standard issue. Like,
I would say, as far as trajectories that people went, all types of different trajectories. Of course, you got your people who drop out and just stay out. You got your people who drop out and go back and get their GED and then get back on track with their education and pursue more post-secondary options. You have your people who graduate and pursue their dreams, go straight into industries such as like fashion design or music production or hip-hop in general. As a matter of fact, the hip-hop artists Lil Jon and T.I. both went to my high school. Now T.I. didn't finish, T.I. dropped out, but the trajectory that he's on, he's rich now, so. And then of course you got your, I guess what you kind of want for people who graduate and go on to post-secondary education, such as myself, go on and attend college and go from there. So, the trajectories, cover the whole spectrum.
What about like your class, people you graduated with specifically?
We got some people who, did some good things, went off to college. I know some folks who went to University of Florida. I knew one guy who tried to come with me to Morehouse, but he didn't stay because he ended up getting a family or whatnot. We had some people who went to Georgia Tech. So we had some people that actually did some things. But I would say as for the large, I wouldn't say the vast majority, but there's a significant quantity of people who graduated with me who didn't necessarily go on to pursue post-secondary options, and they're trying. Some of them have kids, some of them are just trying to work. So you got a mixed bag there as well.
We had it to where at least, and don't quote me on this, but if I remember correctly, 75% of our graduating class had scholarships to college. Not just acceptance, but scholarships to college. So we were making it to the next level of, higher learning. Of course, most of these were HBCUs, and if you put it up against, the national PWI institutions, it doesn't necessarily sound as good as you would think, but it was a big deal, because that means you were about to go make more of yourself than what is to be expected for any 18-year-old person in Mobile, Alabama. And that's pretty much just go get you a job, go get you a family, and live you a little middle-class life if you're lucky. And with most of us getting ready to go to college, we didn't waste time. We didn't waste time, and we didn't waste opportunities. Most of us were going to school for some big-name stuff. I have friends right now that are engineers that are getting ready to get into some big-name companies. The only reason why I won't say is because I don't want to put their name or their opportunities in any legal limbo. Don't want to get them in any trouble. That being the case, we have solar engineers that are getting ready to graduate from college, if not already. We have people that are getting their masters in the fields of psychology, in the fields of in the fields of music, in the films, in arts, like myself, and in acting. I have, and of course you have those that are excelling in the sports. We have a few of us that are in college right now on scholarships for basketball scholarships, football scholarships. We have people that are going on that have, fashion aspirations, that are starting their own clothing lines. So luckily the trajectory for people in my high school and a lot of the other black high schools in my area were, people going to achieve those very high dreams that we were so fortunate to have.
Now, as far as college really helped, because since I have a degree, from Morales College or whatnot, I was able to get a, pretty decent job. And with pretty decent jobs come pretty decent benefits. And pretty decent benefits include, your medical package, dental package, and so I've been able to take care of a lot of those things that I otherwise wouldn't have been able to. So I think that education is highly significant when it comes to health as well.
I mean, definitely in an indirect fashion. I mean, because let's be honest, the jobs that are offering out these benefits that you need to take care of yourself after you get out of your mother's house and offer her insurance, they're not looking for just a run-of-the-mill high school education. So with us being, focused on when it comes to not just getting to college, but getting out of college, which is something that I feel like a lot of college preparatory classes seem to forget. It's not about just getting in, it's about getting in and getting out and doing well. So with my high school and other black high schools in the area focusing on that, when it came to, time to focus on that around about year in the sophomore year, going into junior year, senior year, it definitely helped us to make sure that we basically got to a place in life where we can take care of ourselves through our education.